I have a big question to ask all of you. Is this a good sibling, a good small sibling to the McLaren 765? Let's take a look at it. Over here is the McLaren 750S. It lies directly in between the 720 and the 775. Now, this is a very interesting model because it is essentially supposed to be a facelift of the 720, but at the same time it borrows traits from the 765. Those spoilers, for instance, they are also from the 765 and they are serious business. They don't even budge. And it should also be noted that these spoilers are retractable. They can also act as air brakes, and make no mistakes, those air brakes are very efficient, especially when you're at a very high speed on the racetracks. Now, when it comes to the rear design, it has some similarities to the McLaren 765. But then at the same time, one thing I have to remark about the McLaren models, when studying the rear design, it gives me a bit of Jaguar vibes. It reminds me of certain classic Jaguar models from the 2000s. Now, I just want to take a moment and admire this mesh grille right here. This is a full rear-wheel drive, unlike certain competitors that just love offering all-wheel drives. To access the engine of the McLaren 750S, you cannot open anything, you cannot reach it, it's only for mechanics to reach. This is a 4-liter engine that produces 552 kilowatts. Just about enough power to rip the tracks. Now just take a moment and look at these exhausts. They look like a reference to the McLaren 765, but the difference is that the 765 has 4 exhausts, whereas this has only 2. If you look underneath the rear, you can see the exposed gearbox. Now these brakes are part of the track brake upgrade. Now track brake upgrade is a 19,000 euro upgrade that's actually worth it. This means this car can actually have a very short swapping distance despite being at a very high speed. Let's just take a moment and admire the front design. I absolutely just love how you have this lighting right here, and there's this hollow area, this air vent right here, see? You do get a 360-degree parking camera with this McLaren. Now this is a carbon fiber monocoque, everyone. You can see the carbon fiber exposure, and then the exposure is not only onto the bodywork, it's also throughout the interior. Look at the seats. You get this carbon fiber effect everywhere. This is real carbon fiber, nothing pretentious, by the way. And the purpose of this carbon fiber is not for a trim level. It's for performance reasons. It's for the lightweight purpose, so that this McLaren can perform to its best ability. Now, if we study the interior, it's very, very sport-centric. Very interesting interior. It's very driver-centric. Alcantara all over the interior. Now, I seriously hope that the Alcantara steering wheel is optional, because I'm not a fan of having Alcantara on the wheel, but it is fine. It is great. Now, one thing that should be noted, sitting behind the wheel of this McLaren, I get the feeling I'm in a car in the 70s or 90s, because, no, 70s or 60s, because there's something about the windows design that's very round-edged compared to cars of today, cars of the 2020s. You see, it's just so round-edged. I like it. I actually do. I love it. There's this classic feel. It's very interesting. Very interesting. And it's very driver-centric as well, which, and rightfully it has to be, because it's all driver-oriented. The steering adjustment is really good. It's electric, and this entire thing moves along with the instrument cluster. Now, the idea of putting these 2 dampers up here was to simplify the interior further, not just for the sake of simplicity, but for the sake of ease of driving. Putting all the buttons there before made everything distracting. It made it look like an airplane cockpit, and this was not something you'd need when driving at high speed or when driving in a performance situation. Left side, we have the handling. This damper right here is for the handling, and then on the right side, it's for the power. It's really, really good. And then you get the pallets. Anyways, the steering wheel is very thin. It's, I think, one of the best I've ever held onto. Porsche makes one of the best steering wheels ever. But when it comes to McLaren, it is professional. It is for professional use, for speeding and everything, right? And there's no jokes about it. The seating, it literally holds on to you. It literally holds you in place. That's great. Now, transmission is all buttons. Great. You even get your hazard lights right here. And then you get this basic infotainment system that's not really meant there. This car is not meant to brag its infotainment or anything. And this is evident with the instrument cluster and with the infotainment system. It's beautifully done. Speakers, Wow, you get two speakers that look nicely detailed and everything. Now, just one thing to watch out for is there's Alcantara just about everywhere. So on a very hot day, just be careful that your hands are not sweaty. It's great. And you even get a 12-volt socket that's added right down there. Now, this has me thinking it's there as if it was an afterthought, but it's fine, not a very big deal. When it comes to practicality solutions, forget it, because you're not really looking at this car for practicality purposes. Now, back to the steering wheel, I see two additional spokes underneath. Well, one is for your cruise control. It kind of reminds me of what the Volkswagen Group obsesses over. And then the second one is for your, it's for the voice command, I believe. Interesting. Very interesting. Now, there's a button right there for the chassis lift, for the suspension lift, to lift the nose of your McLaren. That's ideal for when you drive over speed bumps. So here's my conclusion of the McLaren 750S. The McLaren 750S is a great small sibling to the McLaren 765. Now, what makes this McLaren 750S special for me in particular was the excess attention towards the performance aspect of things. It's like buying a 4x4 where you get everything that's off-road orienting. It's like an Ineos Grenadier, for that example.